What's going on, Bengals fans? Welcome back to Bengals Breakdown, where we lock in on everything happening with your Cincinnati Bengals. I'm your host, and today we're diving into the Week 2 preseason matchup against the Washington Commanders, a game that kicks off Monday night at 8 p.m. The Bengals enter as slight favorites, but the real story here is which players will be on the field and what we should expect to see. Before we dive into the latest updates, here's a quick reminder. Before listening to the latest news, subscribe to the channel, like it, and don't forget to press the bell icon. Let's move on to the new news. Now, let's talk injuries, because they could shape how this matchup looks. Cordell Volson is officially ruled out after suffering a right shoulder injury in practice. Rookie wideout Jermaine Burton is still up in the air. He was back on the field Friday, but his status remains questionable. Tight end Mike Gesicki and receiver Geno Stone are also sidelined, along with defensive end Myles Murphy, though coach Zach Taylor hinted that Murphy may return to work next week. A couple of other names to keep an eye on: defensive tackle B.J. Hill and running back Kendall Milton. Both are considered questionable, but it feels unlikely they'll suit up. Meanwhile, offensive lineman Cody Ford was seen rehabbing today. That's concerning, because Ford has been one of the most valuable backups across the line, and losing him would hurt Cincinnati's depth. Cornerback DJ Turner is also up in the air, according to Taylor. But it's not all bad news. Zach Taylor confirmed that 3 Bengals who haven't played in the preseason yet will finally see action: Taylor-Britt, Daxton Hill, and new tight end Noah Fant. Fans should be excited to watch Fant fit into this offense, and CTB could be poised for a big leap forward this season. Now let's turn to the backup quarterback spot, because that's a storyline worth paying attention to. Right now, it's not entirely clear if this is a real QB2 competition or if Zach Taylor is simply giving extra reps to keep both guys sharp. Jake Browning and Desmond Ridder split time with the second-team offense this past week, and Monday night could give us a clearer picture of where things actually stand. Browning struggled against the Eagles. He was officially credited with 1 interception. But honestly, there could have been 3 or 4 more turnovers if Philadelphia's defense had capitalized on some dropped opportunities. That kind of shaky decision-making raises questions about his reliability as Joe Burrow's immediate backup. On the other hand, Ridder started slow, but found more rhythm as the game went on. He looked more comfortable once he settled in, which is encouraging for someone still adjusting to the Bengals system. His performance wasn't flawless, but there were flashes of poise that stood out in contrast to Browning's miscues. Fans haven't forgotten that Browning started 7 games last season and kept the Bengals afloat when Burrow went down. His completion percentage was solid, but the concern continues to be turnovers. If he repeats the same mistakes in preseason, this QB2 role may not be as locked up as many assumed. So the real question heading into this Commanders game: will Browning reestablish himself as the steady option, or can Ridder build momentum and push this into a genuine competition? The outcome on Monday night could tilt the balance either way. The second big area to watch is the offensive guard position, and honestly, it's becoming a real concern. Injuries have piled up, and the Bengals simply don't have the depth they'd like heading into the season. Cordell Volson and Cody Ford have both been sidelined, leaving the team scrambling to find stability inside. Lucas Patrick, who's been taking snaps with the first unit, hasn't exactly calmed those concerns. In practice and against the Eagles, he's been inconsistent at best. He hasn't been a complete disaster, but too often he's losing one-on-one matchups. In fact, there have already been a couple of moments that stood out for the wrong reasons, like getting beaten badly in camp drills, and even being tossed aside by defenders who look stronger and quicker. When you're less than 3 weeks from the regular season, that's not the kind of performance you want to see from someone expected to hold the interior of the line. The Bengals need more reliability up front, especially with Joe Burrow coming back healthy and protection being a top priority. If this trend continues, Cincinnati may have no choice but to explore outside options, whether through a trade or by signing a veteran free agent who can step in and stabilize the unit. The offensive line has been the Achilles heel of this team in the past, and it can't afford to become a weakness again heading into 2025. Names like Cole Strange, Dalton Risner, Brandon Scherf, and Shaq Mason have all been tossed around as possible fixes for Cincinnati's offensive line issues. Whether the Bengals explore a trade or wait for a veteran free agent, the point is clear. They may need outside help if things don't stabilize quickly. Lucas Patrick still has time to turn it around, but through 2 weeks of camp, the results haven't inspired much confidence. Now, shifting to the third major thing to watch in this game, Cincinnati's defensive backs. This group is going to be under the spotlight. Taylor-Britt is expected to make his preseason debut, and that alone gives fans plenty to be excited about. He's projected to play a big role this season, and getting live reps before week 1 is crucial. Alongside him, the safety duo will also draw attention, especially with Daxton Hill stepping into a bigger role. Depth at corner and safety has been tested in camp, and this matchup against the Commanders should give coaches a clearer view of which young players are ready to contribute. Even some of the linebackers could be evaluated in coverage situations, as the Bengals look for versatility across the defense. This is a unit with a mix of established starters and developing talent, and Monday night will give fans their first real glimpse of how the secondary is shaping up for the year. Taylor-Britt is one of the biggest names to watch in the Bengals secondary this preseason. Last year, he showed promise but also had some inconsistencies. He allowed over 700 yards in coverage, averaging more than 40 yards a game, which is too much for a starting corner. At the same time, he balanced it out with 3 interceptions and 16 pass breakups, which proves he has the tools to be a playmaker. The hope is that this season he can turn flashes of talent into consistent shutdown ability. But CTB isn't the only defensive back under the microscope. Last week against the Eagles, several players struggled. DJ Turner was beaten badly on a routine slant in the red zone, showing that his technique still needs sharpening. Rookie Josh Newton had trouble winning 50-by-50 balls, while veteran Jalen Davis gave up a deep shot and was flagged for pass interference on the same play. DJ Ivey was repeatedly targeted and beaten by wideout Darius Cooper, and Nate Brooks was exposed by Johnny Wilson more than once. For a Bengals defense that prides itself on physical coverage, that kind of performance simply won't cut it. Monday's game against Washington is a chance for these corners to bounce back and prove they deserve rotational snaps. The secondary doesn't just need one star. It needs depth and reliability from top to bottom. Linebackers weren't disastrous against the Eagles, but there's still room for improvement in coverage. Cincinnati's system relies heavily on linebackers being able to drop back and support the secondary, and this group needs to tighten up those short and intermediate routes to give the defense more balance. At safety, Jordan Battle has locked himself in as the leader of the group, especially with Geno Stone sidelined for now. The bigger question is who steps up behind him. Preseason is the perfect stage for younger players like Tyson Anderson, Jalen Key, Deshaun Anthony, and P.J. Jules to prove they can not only handle defensive snaps, but also carve out roles on special teams. For depth players, versatility is the key to sticking on the Bengals' 53-man roster. Shifting up front, the defensive tackles are another area worth watching closely. Chris Jenkins Jr. and McKinley Jackson both flashed against the Eagles, showing why the Bengals invested top 100 picks in them. Howard Cross III is another name generating buzz in camp with his consistent energy and strength inside. For Cincinnati, it's simple. The defensive interior has to be disruptive this season. Last year, this group struggled with consistency, and now it's time for these young players to make an impact and prove they can be reliable contributors in the rotation. Early signs from the young defensive tackles are encouraging. Chris Jenkins Jr. opened his preseason with 5 tackles, while McKinley Jackson added 4 tackles and an impressive 3 tackles for loss. Those are the kinds of disruptive plays the Bengals need if they're going to shore up a run defense that ranked in the bottom third of the league last season. Consistency up the middle will be critical, and if these rookies can keep progressing, it could transform Cincinnati's interior front. The final player to keep a close eye on is defensive lineman Shamar Stewart. Zach Taylor confirmed that Stewart will work with the first-team defense this week after playing with the second unit against Philadelphia. Last week, he notched a tackle for loss and generated a couple of pressures, and his growth has been noticeable in recent practices. Of course, Stewart drew attention for a practice collision that knocked Joe Burrow to the ground. But beyond that moment, he's been creating steady pressure on the offensive line. The real question is whether that's a sign of Stewart taking a step forward, or an indication of ongoing issues with the Bengals' protection. Either way, his snaps against Washington will be a valuable test of where he stands in the rotation.